Well, joining us on the set now is Dr. Simon Hoag. He's with Hoag Cancer Family Institute, and thanks for joining us on the program. You've been on the show a couple of times.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. I'm, always delighted to, chat with you guys.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you're the medical director. Tell us a little bit about, your responsibilities being the medical director.
Sure. So as a medical director, I oversee neuro-oncology at Hoag. It's a fairly niche specialty, but requires a lot of coordination and a lot of expertise, not just within necessarily my purview, but also neurosurgeons, radiation oncology, as well as supportive services through our nurse navigation program, social work, as well as people closer to me to help support my patients.
Right.
All that requires a lot of coordination.
Wow. So does that give you enough time to see patients? Because you're like the head coach, right? So you're trying to manage all these different aspects.
Yeah, so I see patients 3 days a week.
Okay.
So on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. My Mondays and Fridays are devoted to administrative purposes as well as research.
Right.
I do a fair amount of research in brain tumors, but as well as in lung cancer and melanoma. I oversee the portfolio of clinical trials related to brain tumor care at Hoag.
What kind of advancements have you seen in clinical trials and research that you've seen in the last 10 years especially?
Yeah, in the last 10 years, there have been some advancement in neuro-oncology, specifically for a type of disease called glioblastoma, or GBM. Under that umbrella of brain tumors, there's also a very recent advance in low-grade gliomas, something that is kind of on the continuum of brain tumors that could potentially evolve into a glioblastoma. An advance from about 7 to 8 years ago, something called Optune, which is a device that patients wear on their scalp. They actually have to shave their scalp and put this device on the skin of their scalp, connected via electrodes to basically a power source or a battery pack that they have to carry around at least 18 hours a day. If they're at home, they can be plugged into like an outlet, but in order to generate the energy, they need some sort of power source. What this device does is basically emit an electromagnetic field into the brain via radio waves at a predefined frequency, about 150 kilohertz. And these radio waves alternate back and forth from these arrays that are on the scalp. What it does is that it interferes with the cell division process of cancer cells. Right. And combined with chemotherapy, it's been shown in a very large clinical trial that it benefits patients versus chemotherapy by itself.
Yeah. Now, was that the video? I was doing some research on you, of course, and you actually had it on.
Yes. Yeah.
How did it feel? Could you feel anything?
It was weird. First of all, I haven't had my head shaved, I think, since I was like a little kid. So that was a kind of a newer experience for me. It was, I did it with the intent to raise awareness. I was doing it for a 5K event, and I wanted people to kind of understand. I personally wanted to understand what it's like to go through this. Obviously, I wasn't wearing it 18 hours for that day, but just the experience of doing it was very. I gained a different level of empathy for my patients.
Right.
So, I had my head shaved, I was at a barber shop, and I still actually continued to go to my barber who did that. He was a great guy, very funny guy when we first did it. And the next day at the event, I had one of my patients, one of my brain tumor patients who was wearing it, put it on my head in front of everybody. We had like 1,000 or like 2,000 people there.
Wow.
And it was at this event, and it was very emotional. People that wear it were visibly, touched, I think, by me doing it as their physician. And I ran a 5K with this thing on my head, with the battery pack on my back. It was a lot of fun. It was truly a very enlightening experience for me.
So obviously, you really are empathetic with, your patient, like you just said. You're so committed to it. Hoag is very committed to their patients. So how has been your transition? Because I believe you're from back east originally. Been out here for a year or so with Hoag.
Yeah.
What kind of support has Hoag given you?
So I've been here over a little over a year now. I think Hoag is a wonderful place to work. I've gotten a lot of support from the administration and from my colleagues to grow and develop the program, especially as it relates to clinical trials. We've done a lot to expand the portfolio of studies, to bring on new studies for my patients, diagnosed with glioblastoma and other cancers as well. The support has just been phenomenal. I feel like not only do I have the time to do this, but I also have sort of the backing of the administration to do what I feel like I need to do to grow a program.
Yeah, and of course it's all about the patient care, right? Because I know one of the things that you're high on is qualitative instead of quantitative, right? You could live to be 110, but if you're miserable, I'd rather go 80 and have a good run.
Right. A lot of my background is actually in how to maintain a good quality of life as we're trying to, extend quantity of life as well. It's a tough balance, but I feel like, if I can't at least extend that life for my patients, I can at least make it better for them in the process. That takes a lot of skill, and that's actually part of my additional training that I went and did. I was at Duke at that time. After I finished my hematology oncology training in Boston, I went down to Duke because I really wanted to do neuro-oncology better. I could treat brain tumors without that additional training, but I really wanted to be as good as possible, as well as understand the field and the state of the art better. So I did that additional training.
Wow. Yeah. So with all your clinical research and all the trials that you've done, what really excites you about the future? That, obviously a lot of this is in beta form, so is there something that's kind of like, I think this is going to really help some of our patients?
I think cell therapy is really getting a lot of traction in neuro-oncology, specifically for glioblastoma. There have been multiple studies that have demonstrated, at least initially, very strong responses to CAR T-cell therapy. CAR Ts are being used actually commercially now for leukemia and lymphoma. There was also a recent approval for a type of rare sarcoma. So it's a solid tumor that CAR T cells are now approved for. We're seeing these kinds of advances in brain tumors as well. There's some things being done on the East Coast, some things being done on the West Coast. I think every large academic center has their own CAR T cell program. At Hoag, we do have an NK cell program. It's a cell type that's also very important in the immune system in killing cancer. We've partnered with a company to start doing these tests at Hoag, and I think it's quite promising. I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
You know so much about this, so you get every part of it. So as a layman, resident or myself, what kind of symptoms would we be experiencing as this process develops in your body?
So for brain tumors, thankfully, they're still very, very rare. So if you have a headache, it's very unlikely to be a brain tumor. But people present with all sorts of different symptoms of a brain tumor. It can be as simple as maybe fogginess or mental status changes, forgetfulness. I know that happens, especially as we age. Not necessarily a brain tumor, but this sort of acute, sudden onset it can be worrisome for as a potential presenting symptom. It could be seizures, it could be headaches, it could be weakness on one side of the body, it could look like a stroke. If a large brain tumor starts to grow very quickly. So most of the time it's not if patients have any of these symptoms, like stroke is obviously a very important thing that you need to watch out for. But occasionally, yes, patients do present to my hospital with these symptoms that initially everyone thinks it's a stroke. Lo and behold, it's a brain tumor. Yeah.
And probably a family member has said, no, we got to go see a doctor.
Exactly. That's usually how it is.
Because you're like, no, I'm fine. I'll be all right. Just a headache. And then, it's something more serious than that.
Yeah, mostly the men.
That's true.
Their wives are just basically dragging them into the ED.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on the program. Great information. It's good to see you again on the program, and I'm sure we'll see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Well, if you have any questions, you want any more information, be sure and visit their website. That is hoag.org, or give them a call at that phone number, and that is for Hoag Family Cancer Institute, and you'll meet some wonderful people just like Dr. Hoag right here. We're going to be right back with more of our program right after this.